cast in a zillion-dollar film that was going to be the biggest, most expensive musical in Hollywood history.
Come on, Dover! Come on, Dover! Come on, Dover! Move your blooming arse!
Based on Lerner and Loewe's hugely popular Broadway musical, The Rags to Riches tale seemed perfect for Audrey Hepburn's unique screen talents. Perfect in every way but one. Hampered by her lack of a singing voice and by the popular preference for Julie Andrews, Audrey was determined to meet the challenges of the role. But although she hired a singing coach and pre-recorded the demanding vocals, studio executives made the humiliating decision to replace Audrey's singing voice with that of professional voice double Marni Nixon.
Audrey was deliberately misled into believing that she was going to sing, if not every note, most of it.
How she worked very, very hard on Fair Lady. And I do wish they'd used her voice, because even as Rex Harrison talked a song, Audrey's voice was lovely. Maybe it didn't reach the high notes, but she could have made it very meaningful.
Seen and heard here is a rare version of one of the film's classic musical numbers, this time with Audrey's original vocal track.
Where you bound for this year, Eliza Biarritz?
All I want is a room somewhere far away from the cold night air, with one enormous chair. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely?
But despite all the problems plaguing the production, My Fair Lady became a screen triumph, receiving a staggering 12 Oscar nominations.
Audrey was not even nominated, pretty much as a deliberate snub to punish her, if not for the fact that she got the role and took it away from Julie Andrews, definitely for the fact that she didn't sing it.
The annual Academy Awards and the bestowing of the coveted Oscars has a glittering audience on hand to hear Audrey Hepburn announce the Best Actor.
Rex Harrison.
Rex Harrison, of course, receives his statuette for his role of Professor Higgins in My Fair Lady, chosen as the Best Picture of the year. Audrey was his leading lady.
Deep love to, well, two fair ladies, I think.
Yes, that's all me.
Ironically, it was Julie Andrews who received the year's Best Actress award for her screen debut in Mary Poppins. But though My Fair Lady had offered Audrey some of the sharpest criticism of her career, she remained as poised and dignified as ever. Her popularity, as always, was unharmed. Unfortunately, the same could not be said of her marriage. Pressured by the demands of a two-career family, Audrey Hepburn and Mel Ferrer once again left Hollywood, retreating to their remote home in Switzerland. Named La Paisible, or the Peaceful Place, the rustic retreat offered Audrey the privacy she craved and an opportunity to rebuild her troubled marriage.
It was just a haven for her, all in white, and the gardens were just so beautiful, and the trees, and the walks with the dogs, and everything wonderful there.
But in 1965, Audrey suffered yet another miscarriage and sank into yet another depression. Seeking a distraction, she went back to work, starring opposite Peter O'Toole in the charming comedy caper How to Steal a Million. Her next role was even more impressive and more challenging in director Stanley Donen's marital comedy Two for the Road.
You love me?
No, dear!
Do you?
Confession's exploded on the Rotterdam Kirk.
Do you?
Yes!
Okay.
Co-starring Albert Finney and with a hauntingly lyrical score by Henry Mancini, the film told the story of a passionate young couple whose romance sours with marriage and the passing years. It was a part Audrey rarely played on screen, but knew only too well in real life.
What sort of people sit in a restaurant and don't even try to talk to each other?
Married people.
In a last-ditch effort to save her crumbling marriage, Audrey once again collaborated with her husband, this time in the taut suspense thriller Wait Until Dark. But although the film was a tremendous success, earning Audrey her 5th Academy Award nomination, the actress had to face the harsh realities of her 14-year marriage. On November 20th, 1968, the couple announced their divorce, citing irreconcilable differences.
She was totally straight with me, and she said, look, you know, we can't live together anymore. I think children know when things are not right. And so you're almost relieved when somebody comes out and says, hey, something ain't right.
But the end of her marriage did not signal the end of Audrey's romantic life. Now nearly 40, she surprised everyone when she quickly fell in love with Dr. Andrea Dotti, an Italian psychiatrist. In a small, quiet ceremony, the couple married on January 18, 1969. Soon afterward, Audrey became pregnant, and after being bedridden for nearly 6 months, gave birth to a second son, Luca Dotti, on February 8, 1970.
The role that Audrey Hepburn played best in life, in a lot of ways, was mother. She was, by all of the testimony of her 2 sons, the ideal mother.
First, I realized I had a mom, and she was a pretty great mom. And then I realized she was an actress, and she was involved with films. It was only much later that I realized that how much she was appreciated worldwide. And it's still a surprise, I must tell you. But I have to appreciate that because I think people love her for the right reasons, and I think she was deserving of that love.
But as Audrey was caring for her son, rumors began to circulate that her husband was having affairs. Still, she remained committed to the marriage. In yet another effort to protect her family from the pressures of her career, she withdrew from public life for the next 5 years.
Audrey had chosen to retire when she married for the second time, and she presumed that her career was in part responsible for the failure of the marriage. She was determined not to risk the second marriage.
But by 1975, at 46 years old, Audrey could no longer ignore the problems in her marriage. More and more, she and Dotti were leading separate lives.
It seemed like they were really pretty much mismatched. But it was a marriage that lasted essentially about a decade and gave her her second son, Luca, which was a great joy.
When there was the absolute need for her to divorce, it was perhaps, in her mind, the greatest failure of her life.
With her marriage disintegrating, Audrey contemplated going back to work after an 8-year absence.
We all felt that it would be healthy for her to be in an environment where she was loved and taken care of.
Co-starring Sean Connery, Robin and Marion told the tale of a middle-aged Robin Hood and his struggle to meet the challenge of advancing years.
In her long-awaited return to the screen, Audrey Hepburn is married.
No more scars, Robin. It's too much to lose it twice.
I've never kissed a member of the clergy. Would it be a sin?
The film proved to be a personal victory for Audrey, and its success re-established her as a viable screen star. Unfortunately, that fact did little to dull the pain of her failed marriage. With divorce imminent, she was becoming resigned to the fact that she might never find lasting companionship.
Audrey and I met at the end of 1979, at a time that was really very difficult for both of us. My wife had died several months before, and Audrey was destroyed by a failed marriage, very reluctant to cause Luca any pain. I think it was very frightening for Audrey, and she was content to just be friends at first, which is all that I wanted at the time as well.
Linked by their common sense of loss and their shared Dutch heritage, Audrey Hepburn and actor Robert Wolders fell in love.
Some of our friends regarded us as antisocial. Days at home would be very, very leisurely. Stroll in the afternoon in the vineyards with the dogs, a swim if the weather allowed it, and then at night a friend or two, and that's what gave her the most pleasure.
Surrounded by friends, family, and a new man in her life, Audrey had found contentment. But the star's long overdue happiness wouldn't signal the end of her good fortune. Just around the corner was the most important role of her career. Although she returned to Hollywood occasionally, appearing in Bloodline in 1979 and They All Laughed in 1981, Audrey Hepburn preferred gardening, reading, and playing with her dogs. But in 1989, after an absence of 8 years, director Steven Spielberg convinced her to return to the screen in the sentimental fantasy Always.
I remember that Steven was trying to figure out who could be God or the angel of heaven. Who could ever pull that off? He said, Audrey Hepburn. And everyone went, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Comfy around the neck?
Yeah, it's fine. Listen, how did I get out of that one?
You didn't get out, Pete.
I didn't. Now I'm sitting here in the woods getting my hair cut. Well, either I'm dead or I'm crazy.
You're not crazy, Pete.
It wasn't just rolling out some old legend. It was an honor to be there and an honor to be in her presence.
But despite a welcomed return, Audrey was no longer interested in a film career. By 1989, the role she truly coveted was Goodwill Ambassador for UNICEF, the United Nations relief organization for children.
She was touched by and deeply moved by the role UNICEF played in her own life. It wasn't just benevolent. There was a passion to it.
It was something that she couldn't refuse, at first on a very limited basis. But then she was so drawn into the work when she realized the needs that it became almost an obsession.
For the first time in her life, Audrey agreed to sacrifice her cherished privacy and used her celebrity to draw attention to UNICEF's efforts.
She was a child of the war and of near starvation who'd been rescued by a UN organization. She not only remembered it, but she felt she had an obligation to give it back.
Now 63 years old, Audrey went to Somalia on behalf of UNICEF, there to witness the massive devastation of civil war and famine.
Audrey always chose to go where the conflict was the harshest. She didn't do it as Audrey Hepburn. She did it as a woman, as a mother, as somebody who saw the human family in jeopardy.
Speaking before congressional committees and in numerous public service announcements, Audrey's heartfelt pleas on behalf of starving children helped raise the world's consciousness.
I think it's safe to say that Audrey Hepburn is the person who made the world aware of Somalia.
It wasn't something she enjoyed doing. She wanted to, though. She wanted to bring that message to the world, that how simple it was to help children.
But as the selfless actress was engrossed with helping others, her own health began to fade. While in Somalia, she developed acute stomach pain and was later admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles.
Knowing that she had contracted something and that she was ill from Somalia, that is to be expected. And we wished her well and knew that she'd get over it. What we didn't know is that it was cancer.
The illness developed so suddenly and totally unexpectedly that it was very difficult for us to comprehend. And we were told that she had only 3 months to live, which Sean, Luca, and I, of course, absolutely resisted. We said it can't be. Life is much too precious to be taken away, just like that.
We were very fortunate to live out the last few months of her life, having the ability to say all the things you want to say at those times. And so when she passed on, as sad as it was, she had all talked us into the fact that it was a normal and natural phase of life. And so we kept the good and left the sadness behind in a way to celebrate her life as well.
On January 20th, 1993, Audrey Hepburn died at her home, surrounded by those she loved most, Robert, Sean, and Luca. A simple grave marked her final resting spot, not far from her beloved home.
She was a living embodiment of the best in the human heart, the human mind and soul. And I think people drew sustenance from that.
I think that there are a few people in one's life that you never really feel that they're gone. I have to remind myself that she isn't around.
She was the best that we could possibly be. She was perfectly charming and perfectly loving. She was a dream. And she was the dream that you remember when you wake up smiling.
What a lovely heritage she's left in this world. The films people can see and the joy that she gives them. And I can think of no more beautiful model to try to be like for the young people today, because there are not many like her that one would want to emulate. Isn't that true?
The best remedy for those who are afraid, lonely, or unhappy is to go outside. Somewhere they can be quiet, alone with the heavens, nature, and God. As long as this exists, and it certainly always will, I know there will always be comfort for every sorrow. And I firmly believe that nature brings solace in all troubles.